Good morning, students. I am Dr. Vijayendra Singh Tamar, Associate Professor in English, Government College, Guda, Jangano. Today, we will learn about a famous poem, Ulysses, composed by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And you, the students of BA Part 3rd, should know this is in your paper first. Before we begin, we should know about the poet. Alfred Lord Tennyson, who was born in 1809 and died in 1892, is one of the most popular of English poets. He is a Victorian poet. Dryden, a famous critic, has said that in every age there is a poet who represents in his poetry the very spirit of that age. And this is true about our poet Tennyson. He expresses the very spirit of the Victorian age in his poems. He stands in the same relation to his times as does Chaucer to the 14th century and Alexander Pope to the early 18th century England. There is a remarkable musical quality and pictorial quality in his poetry. His work reflects an engagement with the past. He used the tales of legendary heroes to express this concern. About Tennyson, who is a contemporary of Browning and Arnold, it is said that he is the most representative poet of his age. Now, before we begin in detail, let us know something about the poem also. The poem entitled Ulysses is one of the most famous poems written in English language. It was first published in 1842 after Arthur Hallam's, who was a friend of Tennyson, death, and it expresses the poet's feeling about the need of going forward and facing life despite the bereavement he has suffered. Ulysses was the legendary Greek hero, the story of whose heroic deeds and adventures is sung by Homer in his Odyssey. As we know, Odyssey and Iliad are two great epics of Greek literature. However, Tennyson's Ulysses is closely modeled on Dante's Ulysses as sketched in the 26th canto of the Inferno. The influence of classical poets, particularly Homer and Virgil, is seen in phrasing and many verbal echoes. But despite this indebtedness, Tennyson's treatment is original and Ulysses remains the noblest of all Tennyson's classical poems. The idea is Ulysses has its own place in English literature. Now, how the idea has developed in the poem. If we study the great epics Odysseus by Homer, the Odysseus, or in Latin Ulysses, was the legendary king of Ithaca in Greece. He was one of the heroes of the Trojan War. The Trojan War was fought between the Greeks and the Trojans. The reason for it was that Prince Paris of Troy eloped with the Queen Helen of Greece. The Greeks attacked Troy to bring back Helen. The war continued for 10 years and the city of Troy was completely destroyed. Ulysses also took part in Trojan War, which lasted for 10 years. Then he spent another 10 years to travel home because he was waylaid by several difficulties and adventures. He returned home after 20 years and led a peaceful domestic life. But he soon felt bored with the homely settled life. In the poem, he is supposed to be standing at the coast of the sea, surrounded by his sailors, whom he exhorts to follow him in quest of more knowledge and experience. Ulysses gives arguments after arguments in favor of a life of travel and adventure. First, the people of the island are uncivilized, the laws are unjust, and so he will not like to rule there. His wife has grown aged, and the people do not understand his real nature. Secondly, he has grown used to a life of adventure, and the inactive life of a king does not suit him. He has visited many lands and known many people with their different habits and ways of life, but there are still many more lands to be seen, and he is eager to visit them. The more he knows, the greater is his thirst for knowledge. He would like to follow knowledge like a sinking star. Human life is short and knowledge is infinite, and therefore no time is to be wasted. At home, one becomes rusted, one shines only in use. He has only a few more years to live, and he would devote them to the pursuit of as much knowledge and experience as possible. As regards his islands, he has no worry about its government. His son Telemachus is quite sensible to perform his duties towards his mother and kingdom. So he leaves his kingdom and his rule to his son, while he himself will enjoy his life of adventure abroad. Therefore, the sailor must set sail with him that very night. In the past, they have cheerfully faced together great dangers and difficulties, and they would also do so in the future. In the past, they have achieved much that was noble. No doubt they have grown old, but noble achievement is possible even in old age. They would sail towards the west, even beyond the western horizon. It is just possible that they would be drowned, but it is also possible that they reach the happy isles, the abode of their dead heroes. They may be physically weak, but they are still strong in determination. So they would set sail to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. The idea is in this poem, Ulysses exhorts his sailors that they should start again an adventurous life, and he tries to motivate them that they should follow and come with him. If we make a critical analysis of the poem, we find the following features attract our attention. As we do its critical appreciation, the first thing which attract our attention its quality as a dramatic monologue. The poem is a famous dramatic monologue. It is dramatic because it expresses the feelings not of the poet but of Ulysses. And it is monologue because only one person speaks throughout. The others merely listen to him, and the speaker is Ulysses. The second quality of the poem is it is a complex work of art. The poem is a complex work of art, as such, is capable of different interpretations. It has been interpreted as an expression of the Victorian urge for action, for life, for excitement, for travel, adventure, and discovery. But it has also been interpreted as an escape poem. The idea is we cannot say that this is the right interpretation of the poem with full confidence, as there are some critics who say that this is an escape poem, and some say it is a poem of Victorian spirit. The third quality of this poem which attract our attention is a character study. The poem aims at presenting a type of character and not narrating an action. The character depicted in this poem is the character of a restless man, impatient to resume his travels and inquiry. That is, a particular trait of the character has been emphasized throughout the poem. Another quality is ego-centered poem. It is an ego-centered poem. The central character, that is Ulysses, is obsessed by self-concern. The pronoun I is used a number of times. For example, I meet endure. I cannot rest from travel. I will drink. Beside this, the words my and myself are used. Now, as far as diction, the poem displays Tennyson's command over language and his felicity of phrasing. He had said what he had to say in the fewest possible words. This makes the diction terse and epigrammatic. Many of the lines of the poem have passed into common everyday proverbs. For example, to follow knowledge like a sinking star, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. These lines have become proverb. The another quality is its music. Tennyson was a consummate artist and he chooses his words both with reference to their sense and their sound. Music is created by the clever use of alliteration, liquid consonants, le, me, and ne, and the bringing together of a number of vowel sounds, as in the following. These two lines, which have been quoted for the purpose of illustration, are: there lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail, there gloom the dark, broad seas. The poem is written in blank verse, which, especially in the last lines, acquire almost a Miltonic grandeur and sweep and majesty of moment. In conclusion, it may be said that the poem is rightly termed as a representative poem of the Victorian spirit of inquiry. It stands out as a forward looking voice, always eager, always on the move. There is epigrammatic brevity in the poet's style and use of words. There are lines where we feel the idea has found its most fitting and beautiful garb. The pictorial effect is concentrated even in a single word. For example, windy Troy. In short, the poet has expressed the feelings of Ulysses in a beautiful way and has used his poetic talent in a remarkable manner. Beside critical appreciation, we can also have one more question on Ulysses, and that is sometimes asked in the exam is character of Ulysses. If we find this question after giving in brief the idea or the story element of the poem, we should proceed describing or elaborately the salient traits of Ulysses' character. The first trait or the quality of the character of Ulysses which attract our attention is he is a traveler. He is a traveler. He has spent the major part of his life in travels and fights. He has traveled far and wide and has had many adventures. He has acquired a lot of knowledge of the world, its men, manners, and governments. But his thirst for knowledge and experience is unquenched, that is, unsatisfied. He has grown used to a life of adventure, and the inactive, settled life of king does not suit him. That is his nature. He likes to follow knowledge like a sinking star. So, this is the most important, or you can say number one trait of Ulysses character, that he is a traveler. He does not want to take rest. The second is he is hungry for knowledge. His hunger for knowledge is unquenched. Ulysses has traveled far and wide and seen many countries and known many people, yet his hunger for travel and adventure is not satisfied. He would like to set sail again and have more experience, he exclaims. He himself says, yet all experience is an arc wherethrough gleams that untraveled world whose margin fades forever, forever when I move. The third quality, that he is a man of action. Ulysses is an indefatigable rover. He says that knowledge is infinite and human life is short, and he has only a few more years to live, and he would devote them to gain more knowledge and experience. He would follow knowledge like a sinking star. His ambition is to sail beyond the sunset and the baths of all the western stars until I die. The another quality or trait of his character is his willpower. Ulysses has now grown old. He does not have the same old physical strength of his youth when he could move heaven and earth. Yet he has a strong willpower. He is determined to travel and have adventures till he dies. As he says, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Another quality is his ego centered personality. Ulysses is an ego centered personality. He is obsessed by self concern. The pronoun I is used a number of times in the poem. For example, I meet and dole, I cannot rest from travel, I will drink. Besides this, the words my and myself are used when he talks of his relationship with his wife, his son, and his people. Another quality is he is an escapist. Ulysses has been interpreted by some critics as an escapist. He seeks escape from his duty towards his wife and kingdom. He leaves all his responsibility to his son Telemachus. The following lines show that he is an escapist. The lights begin to twinkle from the roads. The long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans round with many voices. The line's slow movement and elegiac quality help to stress the element of escapist and suicidal in Ulysses' motives. In conclusion, it may be said that Tennyson was not the portrayer of an individual or nor of active practical character. His characters, with few exceptions, are generalization or refined abstractions, clearly developing certain thoughts, feelings, and forms and bringing them home to all competent sympathies. His characters are not creatures of flesh and blood. This is not much, so there is not much substance in them. There are generalizations and abstractions. They symbolize some particular idea and are not rounded three dimensional figures. Thus, Ulysses is an embodiment of the very spirit of courage and adventure rather than a living, breathing human being. He is romantic with his imagination, all aglow with the lure of far off unknown and the mysterious, lost in contemplation of a distant fairyland, and so incapable of effective action in the present. We can say Ulysses is a great poem, and everyone should try to understand the main idea, the main spirit which is hidden in it. Thank you.